Hi, I'm Dan Jameson, the Mixing Guru. This is our first installment in a bi-weekly blog series that we're going to be doing. In this first blog, I wanted to talk about something that people ask me about all the time. Before becoming the Mixing Guru, I ran endless recording studios for several years. Of course, I've learned a thing or two. And my biggest piece of advice about getting better recordings and mixes, the biggest thing I've learned is just to record better tracks. Simply as that. You want better recordings? You want better mixes? Record better tracks. And I'm going to explain that. What I mean by that is everything up before you set up the microphone. Everything that you do before it hits the microphone. I'll break this down into three areas. Number one is the song itself, the arrangement, structure, whatever. Number two is your performance as an individual and your performance as a band. Number three is your gear. It's everything you have, how you maintain it, the quality of gear you use, and using the right gear for the right job. So let's get started. Let's dig in. Number one, the song. Simply stated, you have to have a good song. You have to record a good song. And I'm not saying that people don't have good songs, but you have to think about it. You know, to have a song, you want a good mix that's punchy and has the chorus really kick in. Well, start that all the way back at the beginning with the song. Write songs with the arrangement naturally punches in at the choruses and hangs back in the verses and creates excitement. Creates something that keeps the listener coming to again and again. And also that has to do with writing and what you're layering in the studio. You can add shakers and tambourines as the song progresses to add a little bit more excitement to parts. Add harmony parts to vocals. Add lead guitar parts to verses and choruses as you go through the song. Make things more exciting or less exciting on purpose with what you do with the song. It's not just the basic song. That's the very first and most important thing in all of what we do is your song has to be cool, has to be catchy, has to have a good hook, it has to be what you want it to be. You know, writing a basic song is very easy, but taking it to that level, that's what the difference is between a garage band and, you know, a major label band. A big part of it is a producer and just looking at the songs themselves and making sure that they punch through and are unique and they stick in people's minds. Now, here comes the hardest part about all this, is you. You as a player and you as a team player, as a bandmate. You have to play well. You have to know your parts. Those are the biggest things. You have to practice. Practice. Okay? Know exactly what part you're going to play in the song, how it's played, and be able to repeat it. So if you have to do punch-ins, you can punch in cleanly and do the same part every time. You should be prepared. You shouldn't be writing in the studio. Most of us don't have the kind of budget to, write like a major label band will do, go off into the mountains for a month in a studio and lock themselves away. We have to be prepared and ready, know your parts. Also comes down to actually playing your instrument the way that you want it to sound. There's a sonic signature to each person and the way they play. You want a really poppy snare drum, you want it to stick out of the mix and snap through the mix, then you have to play it that way. You have to hit it the way that you want it to sound. You have to play consistently and with that technique that you want, that you hear on the records of the people that you idolize. Tone is in the fingers, as they say. You can give Eddie Van Halen or Rusty Silvertone guitar, and he's going to still sound like Eddie Van Halen, even with the worst gear in the world. And that's because of his technique. That's because he is him, and that's the way he plays. Secondly, on that topic, it's you performing as a band. Your band has to be tight. You all have to know what parts you're playing. You have to communicate and make sure you're playing the same parts in the same places, same chords in the same places. You really have to know your song well as a group, as a unit, because that comes across in the speakers. In the mix, in the final recording, the punch that you want to get is from the kick drum, the bass guitar, and the electric guitar all hitting at the same time and making the speakers jump forward with excitement. So for a really punchy mix, you have to be really punchy as a band. You have to be on time as a band, which means, say the drummer's on time and his kick lands right on the beat, but the bass player is a little behind the beat and the guitar player is really excited and he goes a little ahead of the beat. Now what happens, the speaker is going to try and reproduce those at different times, and it's not going to be able to go all the way forward with that kick drum. It's already going to be halfway back with the electric guitar and trying to recover and go for the bass, and it just gets really messy really quick. So be tight as a band, be tight playing, and know what you're playing together. It really goes a long way to the final mix. Now, my third and final point is more the simplistic but it's fairly important. Your gear. You have to have good gear, the right gear, and maintained gear. Like I said, it should go without saying, but it's pretty important. A lot of drummers come in without tuned drums that they haven't changed their heads in months. Bass players are really, really notorious for not changing the strings because they never break. But you do. They lose tone. They get dull. You have to replace them if you really want a bright, punchy bass tone. If you're doing a Motown record, well, fine. Use old bass strings. They have a nice little thump to them. But drums, you want punchy, tight drums that resonate correctly. New heads and tuned heads. Yes, you can tune drums. I know, it's crazy. And same with guitars. And on any stringed instrument, intonation is a big problem. You want it tuned, but it's not tuned all the way up the neck as you start doing higher chord voicings and things. It's going to become problematic. And intonating your guitar is actually very easy. You don't need a technician to do it at all. There's YouTube videos on it. There's actually links on the blogs that I do about it. So you just want everything to be in tip-top shape. But you also want the right gear for the job, which means that you're not bringing, Joey Jordison's metal drum kit in to do a jazz record. Maybe that's the only drum kit you have. Borrow one. Do something. Get one that is the correct thing for the sound that you're going for. That happens to do with guitar amps, guitars, everything. Oh, and it has to be quality gear. It has to be quality gear that you're using. You can't use a Line 6 and expect your record to sound like a $20,000 record. Sorry to everybody that owns a Line 6. They're great. Keep playing live with them. It's fine. But they're just really not a recording amp. And I'm picking on those specifically, but anything that's of, very basic mid-level quality, if you can get something better, do. Call the studio, see if they have something available that you can use while you're there. Call friends, borrow one. I have a friend I borrow amps from all the time. I have some very nice equipment here, but there's different quality amps for different sounds I like that I borrow in from people and use the right gear for the right job. It's very important to do whatever you can if you're going to record and you want this thing to sound great, to use gear that gets the sounds that you want to get, instead of trying to sort of put lipstick on the pig, and make crappy sounding gears try to sound better in the recording and mixing phases. It doesn't matter what microphone you put in front of something. If it doesn't sound good coming out of the speakers or coming out of whatever it is, it's not going to sound good into a $20,000 mic and a $10,000 preamp and $1 million recording studio. It's just not. It's actually going to sound worse. I've experienced that firsthand. So to wrap up, as simple as it seems, and it may have already crossed your mind, the best way to better recordings and better mixes is to record better tracks. Think about every step along the way that happens before you hit the microphone. Really focus on everything. Do the best you can before you even put a mic on something. And then you can put an SM57 through an M box and get a great record. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.